Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our parlor. It has a Christmas tree and a mantle with candles and the table with candles and it's beautiful. And my sister Christine gets all the credit. All I did was watch her do it. Welcome to Soul School. As you can see, I'm alone tonight. And I owe Jeff, my co-host, because 2 weeks ago, we suddenly had a complete malfunction of the computer system here and everything else. And so with 7 minutes to go before it was time to start the show, I had to let Jeff know it was on him that night. I couldn't get in. And he did a beautiful job as always. And he's a brilliant and beautiful human being. And I was very proud. Thank you, Bill. I love Bill, my producer, by the way. Bill, I love you. Thank you, sweetheart. Anyways, classes in session, and what a week I've had, like in the movie Splash. Oh, what a week I've had. Oh, thank you, sweetheart. Thank you, Amir. You're so sweet. I love you guys. Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you. Yeah, I feel like shit. I had a thing this week, Jonathan. I was just texting with you. Oh my God. My dear friend, Jonathan Altieri. Hey, at least you're in Rhode Island. I'm in Georgia. It's not really warmer here. We went down to 18 or 19 degrees last night. Bitchin' cold. Just unbelievable. But, it's not Rhode Island. It's not Maine. So, and it's not Michigan. So that said, I've just had a tumultuous week and what I considered to be a setback. So what I'm looking at to do with tonight's show didn't actually even require Jeff. It didn't. Not that he wouldn't have plenty to add. But I can, as I told Jonathan a little while ago, I can talk for an entire hour without drawing a breath. So not a problem. And there's a lot to go over here tonight that applies to me, but I think probably applies to a lot of other people. The holidays are particularly difficult for a variety of reasons. But I am a very emotional being. Anybody that knows me knows that I cannot subdue the way I emote. And I got really upset last Sunday and emoted a lot, and it fractured a friendship that's almost 50 years old. And don't know about putting the pieces back together again. A major upheaval and disruption in my life. And so it's been weighing on me all week. And, earlier in the week, I contacted Jeff and I was like, well, how about if we do this? And he was all in. But then, of course, he can't be with me tonight. So anyway, what I wanted to do, and did I remember to bring my cheaters over to the desk? No, because that would have just been too easy to just remember to bring my cheaters. So anyway, I'll just do this the best that I can. I can see beyond the stratosphere, but don't ask me to read a menu. The title of tonight's show is I Heard You the First Time, and followed by the redundancy of prayer. So that's what we're going to discuss tonight. And my description is as follows, in case you didn't read it, prior to hopping in. If our faith is strong, why would we assume the existence of a benevolent deity who doesn't even listen to us? Human beings learn through repetition, so perhaps the practice of prayer is merely an acknowledgement, a connection with the universal one for our own benefit, regardless of the request already made. Maybe a prayer whispered reverberates throughout the cosmos like a symphony, lighting the stars. Let's examine the purpose and reason for practicing the presence with the sacred ritual of prayer. God willing is a common phrase, so often uttered without a thought of what it means. Yet we speak it as a quick little quip in response to how we hope a circumstance will be resolved, placing it in God's hands. But our participation is a part of the resolution because we said so, connecting the event with the divine intention or a request for intervention. So there's that. And then what I wanted to talk about was the definition of the word nomenclature, because I'm sure you've heard me use the word, and it's almost exclusively used in terms of naming things, including in science, plants, flora and fauna, and in biology, particularly, is where it's phenomenal, chemical, scientific, but its root pertains to what we're talking about tonight. The word nomenclature comes from the Latin word nomenclatura, which means a calling by name or list of names. Okay, now I've gotten all my information out of the phone and I can lay it down. Excuse me. Oh, coffee. Oh, again, off my rocker, off the leash. This is my beautiful cup that my sister Christine gave me. Sorry about the lipstick. I'll get that off there. Okay, so isn't that beautiful? And tomorrow, Notre Dame opens after 5 years. Oh, I will never forget the day that cathedral burned. I will never, ever forget watching as that cathedral burned and thinking they won't be able to save it. They'll have to tear it down. I was sure they would not be able to save it. And I was wrong. Oh God, it feels so good to say that I was wrong. And besides the people of France, the people of the United States contributed the most of any nation to help rebuild it. And it's magnificent. It's beautiful. So, oh, thank you for putting that up, Bill. Oh, it's just going to be phenomenal. And I was born and raised Catholic, and even though I haven't been a practicing Catholic for most of my life, having kind of been thrown out of the church when I was 15, I was. Well, first of all, the bishop told my parents I asked way too many questions, and that the church wasn't for me. My parents were written a letter by the archbishop. Oh, God. It's true. So anyway, like when we say God willing, are we putting our fate and our destiny and our future into the hands of a higher power, a creator that we believe in, that we feel that we're connected to? When I pray, and most people do, most people connect in some way to the universe in one way or another, especially in moments of crisis. And when we do so, I don't think, at least for me, it's never with the assumption that I didn't get heard. Not ever. The repetition of prayer is what brings me back into that sacred space, into that mind place where I can connect on a higher level, what I call highest love. And it is so sublime and it's so peaceful. And so this week, in the midst of turmoil, I've needed to go there every day. I have spent time prayerfully considering how to move forward or if to move forward through a very painful process that I don't know has a resolution. So I've been very prayerful and very mindful. And at this time of year, I notice that a lot of people write to me, or my friends will call me and say, oh, the energy, I'm just feeling this swirling energy and trying to get myself centered and grounded and in a good space because it's so hectic and it's so overwhelming. So this week, what I've done is I've used the power of prayer to connect with my source energy. Call it God, call it whatever you want to call it. My higher love, and connected with the universe repeatedly, seeking some way to reconcile my situation and to take a situation that I presumed to be a major setback for me and use it to catapult myself forward. I can't undo what is done. Neither one of us can take back what we said to each other. It was a long time coming. And part of me really regrets it and wishes that it had never happened. But part of me also realizes that everything happens for a reason. Everything does. And so I had to flip the switch and flip the coin and flip the script and find a way to allow something that I perceived to be very bad for me to transition into something that ultimately will be good for me, a cleansing of what was toxic, an outburst of energy out of my body that didn't belong there. And a lot of you that are watching this are energy workers and energy healers, a lot of you. And I can name, at least 5 right off the top of my head. And so I know particularly that you know what I'm talking about, which is that human beings very often make ourselves sick. It's not even any external force per se. It's what we do to ourselves and what we allow in our lives. And being a Libra, being a peacemaker, being one who finds conflict anathema, it's really hard to look at this situation as anything other than an inevitability. It was literally only a matter of time before I just had to confront what has been, we all confront our demons, and I'm not calling anyone that. I'm not by any stretch of the imagination. But a relationship can become and the word I'm looking for is it gets to a point where it doesn't serve either person in the relationship. it gets to the point where something either has to change or it has to go away. And when you've invested decades and decades into a friendship that all what you always thought would be forever, till death do us part, it's overwhelming to confront just the circumstance that caused the eruption. I know I'm speaking vaguely, but I'm sure everyone out there has had a falling out with someone that they love very much. And how do you put those pieces back together again? And so that's what I've been very prayerful about, because I now know that I will be okay. And my concern and my sadness is for her, not me. So that said, interpersonal relationships suck. I wore my Suck It Up Buttercup shirt tonight. Thank you, Lenny. Thank you, darling. It says Buttercup, but it's on the fat part of my belly. I'm not showing you. And so, you know, I'm sure that if Jeff was with us tonight, he would have some lovely and wonderful advice. But I think that Jeff understands, as I understand, that when we pray repeatedly or meditate repeatedly or reach out to the universe or go for a walk in the forest or, you know, whatever we do to connect, is a communication. It's a discussion. It's a silent conversation with two parties. There's something else out there. And the reason that I know that is because there have been 3 times in my life, 3 times, that I should have died and I did not, because something intervened or someone intervened on my behalf. Oh, there's Sammy. Sammy, it's a little guy. I don't know where Peanut is. Oh, she's here. And so I know, for me, it's not a matter of belief. I know that there is something, that it wasn't just the power of my mind that created the circumstance that saved my life, that there was something else or someone else that intervened on my behalf. One particularly that saved me from a horrific end of life in a horrible car accident on I-195 coming home from Cape Cod one night, and I ran into a sudden snow squall, and I knew that was the end of me. I knew that it was. I did, and I was in a big car, but the snow was so heavy that my windshield wipers stopped. The motor just shut down, and I couldn't see. And I had an 18-wheeler in front of me. I had an 18-wheeler behind me, and I had an 18-wheeler immediately to my left. And I couldn't see, and I didn't know where I was. And I knew that I was about to be crushed. And with my hands on the steering wheel so tight that I literally went through my gloves and punctured my palms with my fingernails. I mean, it was bad. And something very warm, covered my hands, both of my hands, and steered the car off the road. I didn't do it. I was paralyzed with fear. I could not have moved. My hands were moved. The car was somehow into the breakdown lane. And then the emergency lights turned on. I never touched them. And there I sat and sobbed uncontrollably until a state police officer pulled up behind me, made arrangements for my car to be towed, and drove me all the way home. to the center of Rhode Island from where I was. So don't tell me angels don't exist when they are here among us. Yes. And that was one of 3 times. So I know nobody could convince me otherwise, that there isn't some benevolent being out there that's communicating with us and watching over us. And so when I say God willing, I consider it nomenclature, listing the name, saying the name, assigning a name. And so when we say God willing, yes, are we placing our destiny, our future, our need into the hands of a higher power? I think so. Oh, thank you, sweetheart. I think that we are, but we're also participating in that, because you see, it's a two-way conversation. It is, yes, Amir, you are absolutely right. And so for me, I think that it's important to share sometimes painful and personal things, because other people are having very similar experiences, or have had them, and have never been able to make sense of it, and have never been able to rationalize it or rectify it, or and we just live with the pain and the regret. I hope that we find a way back to each other, but it will be on different terms and boundaries. And so I think there's a better than not chance that this wound will heal in time. And I'm willing to play my part in that. Absolutely. I don't ask to be absolved, nor will I absolve in the situation, because it is what it is. And there's no changing that. But we each have the opportunity to change the way we respond to things that occur to us, that are very disruptive in our lives and trouble our minds. And so, a couple of weeks ago, or a few weeks ago, Jeff and I did a show about, mastering our thoughts, mastering our mind, and keeping that open communication with the universe. And that's what has happened to me. And so I am trying really hard not to look at this, as difficult as it has been, not to look at it as a setback, or perhaps it is, but how to get out of that, how to place it in a more constructive light, instructive and constructive. And isn't that what Soul School is really all about? Why are we here? We're here to learn to love ourselves and each other in a profound way, unconditionally. So there always has to be a way to make amends. Even if the relationship has changed, there's still a way to heal every relationship. And sometimes we human beings have to love each other well from a safe distance, where there's not too much interaction and too much opportunity for a combustible event. And so I'm not self-editing. I'm searching for the right words to share with all of you tonight, because I got schooled this week in humility when I realized how fast I could take a giant step backward. And I got schooled in more of an understanding of myself, because the most pain I felt was for my combatant. And that told me something about myself. Now, some of my friends would say, oh, yeah, sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah. What's it teach you, Anne? Teaches you that you're a doormat and you'll let people walk on you. No, perhaps that's true. Excuse me. Let me have some coffee. My throat is dry. And maybe sometimes in my life I have been a doormat, because it's more important to me to keep the peace than to be right all the time. It's just more important to me. Now I'm having a hot flash. Medicine, sorry, it does this. And so anyway, what I wanted to share with you tonight was the thing about being human as we navigate through this thing called life, is that we're constantly learning. I'm 66 years old. Really looking forward to 67 and beyond, God willing. You know, it reminds me, my father's probably watching this right now, so I don't know how he's going to respond. Dad, you can just, if you're watching, you can just text me your response. But when we lived at the farm 50 years ago, when things would happen, I guess one way to put it, when there would be a paranormal event, an incident that would occur in the house, Dad would sometimes become rather explosive about it. Didn't like it. If we went off and did something together as a family and we walked back into the house and the whole entire house smelled like there was a 200-year-old corpse laying in the middle of every room of the house, I'm not exaggerating. Death permeated, the smell of death permeated the house on more than one occasion. It's in my books. And his standard response to that was, at the top of his lungs, Jesus Christ. Even when I was a kid, I never really considered that he was cursing God, that he was using that as a blasphemy in any way. I always thought of it as a really quick plea for help, a very fast 2-word prayer. It never occurred to me that he was swearing. Excuse me. I mean, I've heard him swear. I can swear. So it wasn't that. It was as though Dad was saying, dear God, this is beyond me. I don't understand what's happening here. Please make this stop. That's how it felt to me when he would scream, Jesus Christ. And my heart always broke for him, because I felt like in that moment he was so vulnerable. He had and one of the incidents that happened at the house, his back was scratched. It looked serrated. It looked like something with wild animal claws had just gone down both sides of his back. And it was a manifestation that occurred with my mother that night. But he was attacked as well, and he would not wake up. She did everything in her power to wake him, and he would not. And she was terrified out of her mind, and she assumed that he was dead, and she was next. And it was the first major manifestation of spirit at the farmhouse, and it was in their bedroom. Well, I was up when he walked out of the bedroom, and his back looked bloodied. It wasn't bleeding, but it looked horrible. And he stood in front of the mirror. The door was open, and he stood in front of the mirror because it hurt. And he looked behind him, and he screamed, "Jesus Christ." And Mom, who had already, she was busy processing what had happened to her when he woke up. And in the time it took her to get him into the bathroom to treat his skin, it was gone just that fast, within, I would say, no more than 5 minutes from him getting up out of bed until, you can't explain stuff like that. It just, we all witnessed it. Well, I was up, and I think Nancy was, maybe Christine too. But it changes you when you see something like that happen. And I knew that was the incident where I was witnessing it from my own bed in my own room elsewhere in the house. And I couldn't move. I felt completely paralyzed. And tears were just running down the sides of my eyes as this entity came over my mother, and her arm dropped down onto my mother's pillow, and she had no fingers. It was just, looked like rendered bone. And my mother was trying desperately to wake my father up. It was just one of the most intense things that ever happened to Mom at the farm. And I guess telepathically, I was allowed to see it, as though I was just hovering above everything that was happening there. And it was traumatic, honestly. It was, every time I even talk about it, it's like it's happening again. It was very traumatic. And I was only, 12. I think I was 12 when that happened. So Mom prayed about it. And my mother was not religious, let's say. She didn't espouse any particular religion. She was really kind of an earth mother. She found her sacred space in the woods, by a river, fishing, out in a rowboat. She was just a Mother Nature person. But she prayed about that because it changed things for her. It was the first time she saw, literally face to face, an entity that was dead and was coming alive and trying to communicate with her. And it terrified her. So she prayed about it, and I asked her, now I don't think I even wrote this in the book, but I asked her about it later, sometime later, probably a couple of weeks. And I asked her if she got an answer to her prayer. And she said, yes, I did. And I asked her what it was. And she said, let it be. It was like, well, that's it. Yeah, let it be. So I have found, especially recently with my diagnosis, that those words are reemerging in my life. And I'm dealing with my current situation like that, as I did when I was told what I faced, as my mother did when she realized that there's another dimension, that there's an energy and a force in the universe that allows the dead to communicate with the living. It's a big awakening. And I guess in a lot of ways, this has been an awakening for me. And Lenny, I know you're sitting there and you're listening to me right now, and you go, oh, Annie, I wish I was there to hug you. And I know, I feel it, sweetheart. I do. I just can't let anger or sadness infiltrate my very positive mindset about my ability to be able to defeat a disease. And nothing can intrude on that process. Nothing. No one. Like Mom said, if you don't have something good to say, don't say anything at all. Sam, settle down. Dogs. And so what I've decided to do is listen to the answer that my mother got in a prayer some 50 plus years ago, and let it be, and let it wash out, and let time do its good work, and get to a place that's more peaceful and less troubled. And then deal with cyber hugs. Yeah, baby. Look at those two. God, I love them. What was it that John Lennon said? All will be well in the end. If it's not well yet, then it's not the end. And I think that that's probably true. So don't think that the redundancy of prayer is wasted time or thought. It's not. Does it mean that if you asked for help or made some kind of a request of the universe, of God, that it went unheard, and so you feel like you have to say it over and over and over again? That's not what it's about. You got heard the first time. You did. It's about connection. It's about love. It's maintaining the conversation, not because you think. And I'm not telling you what to think. I mean, you can think, oh, please, I don't want it to come out that way. I don't. Of course, you can deal with your interpretation of your own prayer rituals however it suits you. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying consider that there's no implicit insult in the repetition of a prayer. In fact, it is a holding of hands. It is a sublime place to be that is more peaceful and is filled with unconditional love. And when I go into a place of prayer and a zone of silence, when I become still and I go within, the answers do tend to be very simple. The answers do tend to come as whispers. The answers are all there, because if we are created then we are part of the creator. And so it is that interpersonal relationship, that energy, that sublime connection that will lead us to truth, always to truth. Let me read. Okay, I can't read because I have to get close. All right, let me leave that up, Bill, please. You've said that negative entities can't harm you unless you relinquish your power. I've always wondered what you meant by that. Seems like really good advice. Sabrina, oh my God, you are beautiful. I'm almost blinded. I can see how beautiful you are. That's an excellent question, and very well phrased. I don't think that anything that is no longer earthbound has the ability to harm us unless we relinquish our power to it. Now, there are a lot of people that work in the paranormal field that would argue with me about that. But I think that, including my own mother, might have beg the question with me, because she was a very powerful woman and never relinquished herself to the entities in that house, and yet was profoundly, significantly affected by them. And so she would argue the point. But for me, what I find is that when I am by necessity confrontational with something that is dark energy, it doesn't stay long. It runs. Runs away, gets away from me. I had an incident in this house, in this room, while I was writing the books, at this desk, in this place, in maybe 2009 or 2010. Okay, so a while back. And I was working on the books, and I was sitting here and I'm typing and typing. It's like 2:00 in the morning. I'm exhausted. And I went and I laid over, I just closed down the computer and I went and I laid on the sofa. And in the stories that I was telling, and what I was, I guess, rekindling, what I was bringing back to the surface, there was a manifestation that occurred. And it sounded like a wild animal was loose in the house, but it was coming from the top corner of the room, like the opposite of that corner. And I had a jolt of adrenaline run through my body, because it really did sound like something wild had gotten into the house. But then I realized that it was coming from the top corner of the room, and there was nothing there visible. And I told it basically what I tell cancer every day. My mantra for this cancer is, get the fuck out of my big fat fluffy temple now. What I said to whatever that was basically the same thing. Get out now. Don't come back. And it was gone, and it never did. So I think it's about being the light, living in the light, that, you can have a black universe, and a single point of light will pierce that blackness. So I try perpetually to live in the light, to always be kind, to live into good intention, to leave a footprint, an imprint on this planet that is liquid love. and nothing dark comes near me because of that. Now, I know I opened a door that night telling those stories. I know that I did. But I closed it just as fast because we have that ability. We have that power. It is not something that is bestowed upon us. It's something that we must claim for ourselves. And I did that as a child because it was an act of self-preservation growing up in that farmhouse. But it was also a very important coping skill and a life lesson that I learned in grade school of soul school when I was just finding my way in the dark. So I hope, Sabrina, that answers your question. Bless your heart. You're so sweet. Thank you for asking. Oh, God. I'm having a flash. Yikes. Excuse me. Coffee is the nectar of the gods, in case anybody questions that. Okay, so I'm going to kind of close this out tonight, just to let you all know. You know Lynn Ann Bowling, if you're in chat, you have been talking with her, is my assistant. Oh, Daz, I'm so glad. Thank you. You're welcome, honey. He is. Isn't he so wonderful? Oh, my God. He's a very intelligent man, and he recognizes a really great question when he sees it. So anyway, I have a boatload of books. Well, not a boatload. I've got some books at the house, and I've only got like 20 days before Christmas to get anybody anything that they want, as long as, make a note of this, as long as you live in the contiguous United States, not Alaska, not Hawaii, not Puerto Rico, certainly not Western Europe. If you live in the contiguous United States and you would like 1, 2, or all 3 of House of Darkness, House of Light with Christmas goodies in the package, get in touch with Lynn, either through the Buttercup Brigade. I want autographed copies of all 3. Oh, God, you are so sweet. He's so sweet. Why don't you have those yet? Why didn't I get those to you yet? But anyway, yes, I've got some books. And for anybody that wants them for Christmas, I also have $39,000 worth of bills sitting in the middle of my kitchen table. And I'm 3 months in, so anything that we can do will help. And if you want to give them as a gift to someone else, thank you, Bill. All you have to do is let Lenny know, and she'll make sure that I've got all the information that I need to get those books out pronto. And it's going to be a really great football weekend, but I know how to multitask. And so I will be wrapping up and packing up Christmas box books and a few things, including a few keepsakes. Oh, Lily, Merry Christmas from Rhode Island. Oh, bless your heart, honey. Oh, thank you. Oh, okay. So anyway, anybody who wants any books, and spread the word. Lynn Ann Bowling, Lenny, go right to her. She will make all the arrangements. I will ship them from here, and I'll try to get everybody's books out by like the middle of next week. Okay. Well, that said, thank you for indulging me and listening to me tonight and joining me on Soul School. It has been, talk about the tests coming before the lessons. This is a prime example of why I am as much a student as a teacher. Okay, is everybody clear on that? I love you all, and thank you for joining me tonight. It's so great to be back with you. The tech gods have allowed me to join you tonight. And so that said, always remember, Sabrina, be the light you seek. and be in touch with all that is. Find the universe in the eyes of someone you love and be at peace. Class dismissed.